You know who won't be on today's panic video? Joe Mixon. Welcome back, Endgame community. It's Chris, and today we're going to talk about some players who didn't meet expectations in week 9, or maybe haven't been meeting expectations all season long, and let you know, should you or should you not be panicking about them. We got to start with DeAndre Swift, and I think we have to start getting very concerned for DeAndre Swift. Came back from injury last week. Didn't get as many touches as we would have liked, but played a decent amount of snaps. Figured, okay, he's going to ramp up from here. And then what do we start hearing? They gave him too much work. He's not 100%. He's going to be limited. And guess what? He was definitely limited in week 9. Only 2 carries, only 4 targets. Justin Jackson had more carries. And this wasn't a game, where the Lions were getting blown out and they couldn't run the ball or anything. No, he just was not involved. And you got to really worry now. Is he just going to be banged up all season long and never get the workload or the usage we were hoping for? So definitely in the short term, panic level has to be sky high for DeAndre Swift right now. But even going forward, panic level has to be high here, because unless we start hearing things like he's healthy, he's ready to go, and he's going to get his full workload back, he's just probably not going to see the usage or the volume he needs to be a fantasy stud. So again, panic level has to be high on DeAndre Swift. And then a guy who looked like maybe one of the biggest steals of the entire draft was Josh Jacobs. Had that incredible stretch of just scoring 30 points week in and week out. But the last 2 weeks, we've really seen kind of the old Josh Jacobs, right? Just not a lot of upside, not really doing a whole lot. Even last week when Davante Adams no-showed that game, Josh Jacobs did hardly anything. And this week, he got you 11, but you're not doing cartwheels over 11 points. Like, that's not what you're looking for from Josh Jacobs right now. And the worry here is this offense. This offense looks bad. They can't win any football games. They can't get into, positive game script where they can just hand the ball off to Josh Jacobs over and over and over. And look, guys go on heaters sometimes. Maybe Josh Jacobs just went on a heater and now he's coming back down to earth and he'll be the guy that he'll be. I'm not going to put the panic level high here for Jacobs because I still think he'll be good. He still did have 17 carries in this game, so it wasn't like he wasn't involved. Just maybe he's kind of coming back down to earth. Still an every week RB2, no doubt about it. Maybe even an RB1. Panic level, though, going to be medium here. We'll see how it goes next week. All right, once again, got to talk about Leonard Fournette. It's getting worse and worse for Leonard Fournette here. Now, granted, he did save his day with, garbage time receptions again, which he seems to do every single week. But man, he's nothing more than just a high floor running back at the moment. And the thing that's really got to be concerning is this was the first week where it was almost a 50-50 split for Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette. Now, granted, Leonard Fournette did have a couple more catches than him, but they were pretty much equal on the ground. I mean, White had more yards on the ground, but as far as carries go, and really, Fournette only a couple more catches than Rachaad White. And we've already heard, rumblings from this staff that we got to get White more involved. We got to get these younger guys more involved. We got to take the load off Leonard Fournette. I mean, I don't know what you do with Leonard Fournette at this point. Like, he's beyond the point of a sell high. He does still give you a decent floor. Like, if a guy you can start week to week, maybe he could score some touchdowns. Although this offense isn't even really giving him a lot of chances to score touchdowns. But I mean, I got to put the panic level high on Leonard Fournette. I just don't see the path for it getting better for Leonard Fournette. And if anything, it might get worse. And then we've been seeing David Montgomery losing touches to Khalil Herbert over the last couple of weeks. But that kind of flipped here in week 9. David Montgomery did outtouch him 14-7. That was a nice thing. But you know what really killed David Montgomery's fantasy value? Justin Fields. They have been running Justin Fields more and more. And not just scramble, keep the play alive, type of runs. No, they're calling designed runs for Justin Fields. They've done it for 3 straight weeks now, and it is working, and I don't think they're going to stop. And as long as Justin Fields is running like this, it's going to cap Montgomery's upside, especially when they get near the goal line and Fields just takes it in himself or breaks off long runs like we saw in week 9. So this is a stretch here now where David Montgomery has not been very good, and I just don't see a path for it getting significantly better. So right now, David Montgomery can't be anything more than a desperation RB2 kind of start. We do have a lot of bye weeks, so you may need him. But outside of that, don't like what I'm seeing from David Montgomery. I got to put the panic level high on David Montgomery. Look, we knew when Jeff Wilson was traded to Miami, it could be a big blow to Raheem Mostert's fantasy value. I don't think we thought it would happen this quick, though. And it looked early in the game like, okay, it's still going to be mostly Raheem Mostert, maybe Jeff Wilson sprinkled in. But that flipped big time down the stretch. And not only did Jeff Wilson badly outscore Raheem Mostert, he had more carries and more targets and receptions than Raheem Mostert. So for all intent and purposes, Jeff Wilson was the lead back today. Now, it was still close. It wasn't like he pulled away from Raheem Mostert, but the worry here for Raheem Mostert is that Jeff Wilson does pull away. And when he does, Raheem Mostert's value is gone. He's nothing more than a high-end handcuff. Remember, Jeff Wilson was with Mike McDaniel in San Francisco. He knows the offense, he knows the system, and McDaniel knows Jeff Wilson. It's not hard to see him taking over this backfield like big time as early as next week. So if you grab Jeff Wilson off waivers, you're feeling great. But if you have Raheem Mostert, you're not feeling so great. I'm putting the panic level high on Raheem Mostert. All right, let's move on to wide receiver. And the big name here is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And look, every week people comment, oh, you don't have Amon-Ra St. Brown as a must start. Oh, you didn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown in the top 10 rest of season wide receivers. Well, here is why. What has he done since week 2? Nothing. He hasn't scored 14 fantasy points in any game since week 2, and he has 3 single-digit fantasy points, including here in week 9. And look, for a while you could use the excuse that he was hurt, but you can't use that excuse anymore. This is 2 bad games in a row where he was fully healthy. You know what the problem is for Amon-Ra St. Brown? It's the same problem it's always been. He's got Jared Goff as his quarterback. Jared Goff is not going to support Amon-Ra St. Brown being an elite fantasy wide receiver week in and week out. Yes, he'll still be a very good fantasy wide receiver, a wide receiver 2 with decent upside. But in this offense, you can't expect him to be a week in, week out stud, no doubt about it, wide receiver. But still, outside of people who think that way, nobody else should be panicking on St. Brown. I mean, a little bit maybe, because not really putting up huge games, but I'm going to keep the panic level low on St. Brown. But if this happens again next week, then we might have to start panicking. Now, a wide receiver I was really high on in the draft process coming into the season was Michael Pittman. But I'll be honest, I didn't see the Colts going into full-on tank mode, give up, don't care. Because you don't go out and get Matt Ryan if your plan is to tank and give up. But that is absolutely what the Colts are doing right now. You cannot deny it. Sam Ehlinger is awful. Does not belong on an NFL field. You could say the offense was bad with Matt Ryan, but this offense genuinely might be the worst offense in the NFL right now. Completely inept. Can't move the ball. Guy had 1 completion with like 2 minutes to go in the first half. He had 1 completion. This is not an NFL offense. This is not a team even trying to win. So panic level sky high for Michael Pittman right now. Really cannot be started outside of good, like extremely good matchups. Again, panic level high for Michael Pittman. All right, let's move on to a wide receiver who kind of looked like he was coming on the last 2 weeks, and then the wheels fell off here in week 9, and that is DJ Moore. Now, I had him as a sit in our start-sit video. Then the Bengals secondary got decimated with injuries, and I said, okay, you could probably play DJ Moore this week. The Bengals secondary is really, messed up. And it wasn't even happening for him. And then what did we see? PJ Walker was terrible. Worse than that, though, PJ Walker got benched for Baker Mayfield. And now there's a real possibility the Panthers will turn to Baker Mayfield for the rest of the season. And we've already seen how this goes. It's not good for DJ Moore. In fact, it's not good for DJ Moore. It's terrible for DJ Moore. So hopefully you were able to trade him after that big game last week, because I just don't see a path for DJ Moore happening this year now. Whether it's PJ Walker or probably Baker Mayfield, it doesn't matter. Chances are not going to happen for DJ Moore. Panic level high on DJ Moore. And then Devonta Smith looked like he was putting together a second-year breakout season, and then the last 2 weeks have just really been down weeks for Devonta Smith. But I'm not ready to put the blame on Devonta Smith here. I just feel like situation has kind of worked against him. 2 weeks ago, A.J. Brown went nuts for 3 touchdowns and a huge game. When one guy has a game like that, it's going to be very hard for anybody else to get involved. This week, in week 9, the Eagles really didn't have to throw it a lot. Only 27 pass attempts for Jalen Hurts. It's a Dallas Goedert week. And if you look at A.J. Brown, people are like, oh, A.J. Brown's been great. Yes, A.J. Brown only had 4 catches for 59 yards in that game. He scored, but it's not like any of the receivers had a big game. This is just what you have to expect with Devonta Smith rest of the season. Very, very volatile. He'll have games, 15, 20-point games, and then he'll have, 5, 6-point games. So just understand what you're getting with Devonta Smith week in and week out. He's going to be very volatile in this offense. And look, as long as this defense plays like this, they're not going to need to throw the ball a lot. So I'm going to put panic level medium on Devonta Smith. Just understand what you're getting rest of the season. A wide receiver who's been very boom bust this year is Gabe Davis. And I don't think a lot of people realize when they drafted Gabe Davis, this is what they were signing up for. When you drafted Gabe Davis, you were signing up for the potential boom games, but also the potential for games to just be complete bust like he had again this week. This is 2 weeks in a row with only 2 catches. The irony here is he's actually getting targeted, but they're just not being completed. Look, he had 2 tough matchups here the last 2 weeks, and that's the problem with Gabe Davis. He's not a type of receiver who can get separation, can beat tough corners, beat tough coverage. He's a guy who can hit the home run, hit the Hail Mary, and he can do that on any given week because he's got Josh Allen. Some weeks he's not going to hit the home run. He's going to go 2 weeks without hitting the home run, maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, who knows? But when he does, you're going to be happy you had him in your lineup because he's going to help win your week. So he's just kind of a guy you have to really look at the matchup and think, okay, is this the type of matchup where they can give up a big play or not? Now, the nice thing is, over the next 3 weeks, he gets Minnesota, Cleveland, and Detroit. Those defenses can all give up huge plays. So I'm going to keep the panic level low here on Gabe Davis because, again, this is what you signed up for. This is what you have to expect with him. All right, let's move on to tight end, and that was fun for Kyle Pitts for one whole week. We got 1 week of a great Kyle Pitts game and then back down to earth. 2 catches, 27 yards. Now, granted, he did have 7 targets, but who cares? Who cares when you have 7 targets if your QB can't hit you? Worse than that, Kyle Pitts had a wide open, it was at least going to be a huge gain, if not a huge touchdown, and Mariota just badly overthrew him, and that's the problem here. We know Kyle Pitts is talented, but Mariota can't support Kyle Pitts. He just can't. Sure, he'll probably have 1 or 2 more games for the rest of the season, and when he does, people will buy back in and say Kyle Pitts is a must start, and then he'll disappoint the very next week. So Kyle Pitts just is what he is at this point. He's a streamer, like a high-end streaming option at tight end that you put in, and you just pray he scores or catches a bunch of passes. Kind of like every other tight end outside of the really good ones, which are like maybe 7 or 8 of them this year. So yeah, panic level back to high on Kyle Pitts because there's just no sign of this getting better for Kyle Pitts. And then I usually don't put injured players in here, but I've got to talk about Darren Waller. Like, what are we hoping for from Darren Waller at this point? He's had 1 good game this year. Started off with like an okay game, then had a great week 2 against one of the worst defenses against tight ends, the Cardinals. And then back-to-back 5-point games, and we haven't seen him since. And every week, it's the same thing. He's questionable. Maybe he'll play. Oh, no, ruled out at the last minute. Even if he comes back, what are you really expecting from Darren Waller at this point? You know what I'm expecting from Darren Waller at this point? Nothing. 4 points, 5 points, 6 points. That's all you're going to get from Darren Waller. Maybe he'll score a touchdown 1 week and get you like 10 or 11. Congrats. No, Darren Waller, I wasn't really on Darren Waller before the season anyways, but I'm completely off Darren Waller now. Panic level high. I don't care if he plays next week, the week after, or never. Panic level is high on Darren Waller. You know it's tough out there in the world for tight ends, but Tyler Higbee is absolutely droppable right now. 0 catches this week. He hasn't done anything recently. It looked like early in the season Tyler Higbee was going to be one of those late round tight ends, kind of that savior who gets a ton of targets, ends up as a top 5, top 10 tight end, and now barely involved in the offense. I'm not sure what has changed here, but just not getting targets, not getting receptions. Look, I know tight end is a wasteland, but you can't keep rolling Tyler Higbee out week after week and getting 0 or 2 points or 3 points or whatever he's giving you. You have to drop Tyler Higbee right now and just try to find somebody better on the waivers. You know, maybe somebody like Njoku if he was dropped with his injury. Maybe if Dulcich is still out there. Just try to find somebody better than Tyler Higbee. But panic level has to be high on Tyler Higbee. All right, let's move to QB. Let's talk about Justin Herbert. Now, look, we knew he had no weapons coming into this game, right? Mike Williams out, Keenan Allen out, had Josh Palmer, had Gerald Everett, had Austin Eckler. But look, he's only really had Mike Williams this season. It's not like he's had weapons all around him. And it was the Falcons. Like, it shouldn't have mattered. It was the Falcons. He should have been able to have a nice game against the Falcons because they're just that bad. But he didn't. I mean, he didn't completely bust this week, but man, this is a terrible week, especially if you drafted Justin Herbert as a top 5 QB, it's not like he's been lighting it up the entire season this year. He's been bad, and until Mike Williams and or Keenan Allen comes back, his upside is probably going to be very limited. And also, this offense limits him because all they do is dink and dunk down the field. They don't take shots. Even with Mike Williams healthy, they rarely take shots. Now, I will say he has some great matchups coming up. From now until the end of the season, almost every matchup is a smash, can't miss matchup. So if he gets Mike Williams or Keenan back soon, then things should be fine for Justin Herbert. So I'm going to put panic level medium for Justin Herbert. It just might be a little bumpy until one or both of those guys come back. And this is the last time I'll talk about Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers looks like he's already retired. I mean, granted, he had a decent fantasy game. He salvaged it with some, end of game touchdowns or whatever, but man, he looks real life horrible. 3 interceptions, all on bad underthrows, bad throws. He looks disinterested to me. He does not look like a guy who's out there fighting to try to win a Super Bowl. He looks like a guy who's out there collecting that last salary, that last check, getting through the season so he can retire and go do whatever he wants. At this point, I hope nobody is starting Aaron Rodgers in a 1 QB league. Even in a Superflex 2 QB league, it's looking very, very dicey if you have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, panic level has to be sky high here. I guess enjoy whatever you can of Aaron Rodgers this year. There's not much to enjoy because this is probably the last year we're going to see Aaron Rodgers. All right, now you know some players you maybe should or should not be panicking about. What about who to pick up off waivers, who to start, who to sit, who could boom? We got you covered. Everything you need to dominate and win your matchup. Week 10 playlist right here. Check it out.